What up, Dragon Ballers? This is going to be my episode review for Dragon Ball Daima episode number 20 called Maximum. This is the series finale, people. This is the end of Dragon Ball Daima. This 20 episode mini-series has had its ups and downs, but we have now reached the pinnacle of the story and of the action. Does it land? Well, depending on who you ask, it might or might not. There's actually, I feel like there's going to be a very divisive conversation that takes place, not only just in my review, but also just in the Dragon Ball community, because there are things that happened that are universally adored, and then there are things that they did, or maybe not did, that is going to raise a lot of red flags. So I'm going to be giving my honest opinions at the end of the review. I want to first go through the episode, and if you guys haven't done so, do check out the other videos that I've done for the series thus far. This is where the series ends for now. And depending on how you guys receive these videos, I may or may not do this in the future. If there's another Dragon Ball series, maybe I will continue these reviews for those sorts of episodes as well. But without further ado, let's jump in for the last time into Dragon Ball Daima. We pick up right from the last episode. No intro theme plays this time. Just straight to the action. Super Saiyan 4 Adult Goku versus Giant Goma. It's like they wanted to give us as much time as possible to fit everything into this 20-minute finale. Goku gathers himself, closing his eyes to prepare for the final bout. We see Piccolo once again hiding in the rocks, reminding us of their plan to disarm Goma. No words, just non-stop fighting. About a 4.5-minute sequence then takes place of just fighting. And honestly, I appreciate that. The fact that we jump into the action, we get to see what makes Dragon Ball, pure combat, is really something to behold. After a series of insane punches, the damaged Goma is once again healed by that third eye. Goma starts to power up. Cue Scrite sound effect. He conjures up a magical staff while also firing a bunch of purple energy orbs at Goku. Goku dodges them and starts attacking Goma again. But again, Goma is able to recover and stave off more assaults. Goku starts panting. Like before with Vegeta, we are meant to take that as a sign of concern, but Goku immediately starts to grin as he seems to be relishing this moment. He charges up and rushes in again. So does Goma. Goku reaches up in the air similar to the old Dragon Ball Z intro, but then begins powering up. Goma, seeing Goku power up, starts to panic and throws a barrage of blasts at Goku, who is unfazed. Goku, now done powering up, starts to charge a Kamehameha. Goma is shaken and starts to charge a negative energy ball. In a beautiful animation, Goku fires the blast, as does Goma, and a beam struggle ensues. It's the Eye versus Goku. Goku is able to overpower both Goma and his Eye, and his Kamehameha blast pierces through Goma. And the visual kind of calls back to Dragon Ball when Kid Goku is able to take down Demon King Piccolo. The beam continues to fire and pierce through the boundaries of the first demon world. We see Tamagami 2 as the blast shoots past the barrier of the second demon world. We even see Tamagami 3 as the beam reaches him in the third demon world. Water from the second demon world starts to pour into world 1, as we see this amazing shot of Goma's silhouette with a hole in the middle of his body while his eye glows above. Everyone is in shock, along with Goma, but not Goku. As Goma collapses in front of Piccolo, he then charges forward and lands a solid kick on the back of Goma's head. He then lands a solid punch right after. And as he is about to land the finishing blow, Goma turns around and smacks him out of the air while he is still reeling from immense pain and suffering. Goma, realizing that they almost removed his eye, starts to evolve again. Goma, now seemingly even bigger and fully regenerated, starts to power up and blasts everyone away. As it appears he can't be stopped, a floating Majin Ku, still holding that giant book, just so happens to float near the back of Goma's head, and he manages to smack him in the back of the head 3 times with the book. The eye pops out in the most anticlimactic way, of course. And as the eye rolls, Goma reverts back down to his puny form. The eye ends up in front of Glorio on the ground, and Glorio squishes the eye. And just like that, it's over. After a tense pause, Majin Ku lands and everyone begins to celebrate, congratulating him on a job well done. Majin Du is even seen celebrating with one of King Kadan's soldiers. Neva and Tamagami 1 smile at each other with relief. Ku then walks up to Arinsu, who smiles back. Goku then finally lands and meets up with everyone. Goma is now tied up in the same restraints as Dagesu and starts yelling at Neva for his betrayal. Arinsu then informs Goma that he will be sentenced to 100 years in prison. And the way that they imprison Dagesu and Goma inside the flask is very reminiscent of the Mafuba evil containment wave technique. With the bad guys gone, they start discussing who will take over as the next Demon Lord. Arinsu declines as she wouldn't want to risk being overthrown without the power of a Shenron level upgrade. Neva then says that it is the one who defeated the previous Demon Lord that is actually next in line to inherit the throne. As the camera pans to Goku first, it then slowly moves to the other side, where Majin Ku sits unaware that he has been chosen. He immediately jumps up and happily accepts. Just then, a cape appears on his back. He then appoints Arinsu as his vice demon lord. He appoints all of his friends as ministers: Majin Du, Neva, Maruba, Glorio. Even Hybis volunteers, to which he says yes. And everyone begins to celebrate. It's time to go home. Back at Kadan's place, Pansy gives Bulma some Modulite as promised from earlier in the series. Meanwhile, we see Vegeta starting to yell at Goku, claiming that he could have actually defeated Goma by himself. Vegeta then says that Goku was keeping this new transformation secret, a common criticism from Vegeta over the years. And then we finally hear for the very first time the official canon name, Super Saiyan 4. Goku says that after fighting Kid Buu in Dragon Ball Z, he trained very hard, and honestly was not sure how that form was going to pan out. Vegeta responds with another callback to Dragon Ball Z, saying,
"Yes, naturally, it's a Super Saiyan bargain sale."
Goku then counters by saying Vegeta also was holding on to a new form in secret and comments on Super Saiyan 3. But Vegeta, flustered, retorts by saying that it's actually called Ultra Vegeta 1, which I love because they're poking fun at the crazy naming conventions of Dragon Ball. Neva asks Dende if he would want to live in the demon world, but Dende doesn't wish to leave his responsibilities on Earth. He then asks Piccolo the same thing, who replies the exact same way. Dende then offers to ask the lost Namekians in the outside world if they wish to come back home. We then see Kadan thanking Goku for his help and comments how the reopened tunnels have actually made the air lighter again. Then everyone boards the ship and flies off as Majin Ku, Majin Du, King Kadan, and the rest of the troops wave back. And that's a wrap on the series. As the theme song begins to play and the credits begin to roll, we see the life in the demon world after the events of Dragon Ball Daima. Meanwhile, back on Earth, people begin to celebrate their forms returning back to normal, except for Roshi, of course. We are once again reminded of the horns that are on Mr. Popo's head. Trunks and Goten go skyboarding? I guess that's what you would call it. We see the flask that Goma and Dagesu are in. Goma sits in a chair depressed as Dagesu is seen behind him playing cards. We then see another shot of the two of them sitting side by side playing video games. After the credits roll, we are back with the crew as they are still on their way back home. Goku asks if they could stop by the bug shop and get some more Medibugs to replenish their depleted Sensu Bean supply. In the shop, Bulma learns about the various bugs and how the Butte bug is good for skin by de-aging the skin by 10 years. Initially, Bulma was very grossed out by these bug items, but upon learning this, Bulma then asks if she could buy the whole bin. As Bulma is freaking out, Pansy notices a dusty jar nearby and notices two more third eyes inside. What? The shopkeeper lady then talks about how those items are incredibly expensive and they can be used to grant immense power. She was only able to sell one third eye a very long time ago. Upon hearing this, the group freaks out and the show ends. So before I give my thoughts on this, I just want to say, going into Dragon Ball Daima, the number one question that I think everyone would have had was, how exactly is this story going to work? With this story taking place in between two established series already, and with the likelihood of introducing new concepts and new forms on top of new characters, how were they going to put the genie back in the bottle after the events of Daima had concluded? The common theory was a universal reset or a mind wipe or some sort of time distortion that would basically allow this to happen, but then also not happen. Sort of in a canonical, non-canon event. But it turns out that it's all happened, and they're not really trying to hide it. So either this isn't canon, or maybe Super isn't canon, or maybe there still needs to be more story that is told before we actually reach Dragon Ball Super. And based on the ending scene, this is probably very much so a coping moment for me. But I'm thinking, based on the seemingly extra polish that we saw during the animation sequence in the final post-credit scene, maybe they're setting up something for a potential movie to tie up all the loose ends. I don't know all the behind the scenes news on the series, what's going on with production. Obviously, you know, with Toriyama's tragic passing, there's not going to be any more extra story, but maybe there was already enough done to storyboard a movie. And maybe this final scene having a different animation style was meant to be a setup for that. Maybe this was just something that they were going to also include in that opening scene for a movie. I don't know. I'm just completely making that up. These are just my honest opinions based on what I felt going into this. Because if they don't do anything to wrap up the story and have this conceivably work with Dragon Ball Super, it kind of rubs me the wrong way. As much as I loved Super Saiyan 4, as much as I loved all of these cool moments, Super Saiyan 3 Vegeta, Neva giving Goku his power back, which we now learned was simply just a power boost. There was no awakening anything. Goku just had Super Saiyan 4 the whole time. All of these things need to be addressed and they need to be undone, because otherwise this now retcons other events. Goku is now a liar. When he fought Beerus, he said Super Saiyan 3 is his final form. That's an outright lie. Vegeta not having gone Super Saiyan 3 against Beerus is also nonsensical. And the fact that he could have done it and he was holding onto it himself means that he purposely didn't use that form. Now, obviously, again, that released before this, but when you're trying to make a prequel series, you have to be able to account for these things. And for me, that matters. I know some people will probably not care about that, and they'll probably just say, you know what? Just enjoy the ride. And I very much did. This is why I feel like some people are going to be divisive on this. I loved the moments that we had during this show. And honestly, if I just let go of the canon, if I let go of the logic and the plot holes, I loved Dragon Ball Daima. I thought that this was such an amazing adventure. I loved the new characters that we got to meet. I love that Vegeta got to really have his moments where he shined bright. This was such a well done series in that regard. There was some pacing issues, of course, but for all those different things, I loved it, but I can't help but go back to thinking about the inconsistencies. No join bug payoff is kind of a letdown. No solid explanation for the form of Super Saiyan 4 other than it is Super Saiyan 4 and it's the final form, or at least it's the next form after Super Saiyan 3. They talked about Rymus. They talked about the origin of the God of Creation role, but that was really never fleshed out any further. We never got to see anything involving Glorio and Arinsu besides that revelation that Glorio betrayed Arinsu when he was supposed to betray the heroes. There seems to be a deep connection between them, but we got nothing. So I do hope that we will come back to revisit this either via a movie or maybe a season 2 or something like that. But again, I don't know all the behind the scenes stuff. I'm going to give this episode a B+. A B+ because it was still very beautifully drawn and choreographed. The showdown between Goma and Goku was so special and it was so awesome to see. The way that that whole final fight actually ended fell flat to me. I understand that Dragon Ball does tend to have these comedic moments where things sort of flip the script, But for this one, I was really hoping that there would be something a little bit more substantial that would end Goma's reign rather than them actually being able to give him a concussion. That just seems like a cop-out. It felt like a very rushed plot device to just end that conflict altogether and move on to the cleanup phase, if you want to call it that. So those are my thoughts. I'm gonna leave it there. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about this episode. Again, I hope you understand I still truly loved Daima. I love the adventure, but I can't help but feel a little thrown off by this questionable landing at the finish line. It feels like there should have been more, and there wasn't. My favorite episode of the series is still going to be the previous two and the Super Saiyan 3 Vegeta debut. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the series. Hopefully you guys were able to pick up on some things that I did not. Thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned and always remember to Daima responsibly.